couple of years ago, we got hired to work on a commercial real estate project in the east part of the California Bay Area. And the project involved a subdivision of some land on the outskirts of a city. It was in the city limits, but it was on the outskirts of the city. So the proposed project was to subdivide the lot into 2 or 3 parcels and then to build 2 or 3 commercial buildings. But this particular city was not, it's not known for being development friendly. So it's a heavily regulated jurisdiction. The client that hired us, the landowner, already had a strained relationship with city officials. So he'd already had some non-permitted uses of the parcel that were going on and had been cited for that. And there were already some challenges in that relationship that we were aware of. So the client came to me, was referred to us by a land attorney, and came to me and said, I want to do this subdivision and I need your help. And so I said, yep, we can help with that. We can certainly help with that, with the survey part and with the land use planning, project management part. But we told them right out of the gate, we said, look, this is a high risk development project. You're likely going to face some pretty heavy impact fees, just based on the jurisdiction that you're in. The conditions of approval are probably going to be very burdensome. And we did some napkin math. We said, it looks like you probably have a project here that would be profitable, but you're going to spend a lot of money to get your entitlements and your approvals and your permits. And there isn't a guarantee. This is a high risk project. So the client went ahead and hired us, and we did most of the work to get the initial applications into the city. And there was some back and forth with us and the city and the owner. And the attorney was involved in that. And make a long story short, the city was not super excited about the development, and they imposed some very burdensome conditions of approval, and the impact fees were extraordinarily expensive, in the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars for this 2 or 3 lot subdivision. And so ultimately what happened is the landowner, the client, fired me. He fired my team, and he hired another project manager. And the reason he fired me is because I kept telling him, this was what we expected, this is what we told you, and we can negotiate with the city, and there's things that we can do, but you're not going to get around some of this. Some of what the city is asking, you're going to have to do. You're not going to be able to get around it. And there were some cultural issues there. He was, he came from a cultural background where, if you applied enough pressure and kind of bullied and intimidated, you could get your way, or, if you greased the right palms at the local government, you could get your way. And I told him, I said, that's probably not going to work here, especially not in this city. The more you get belligerent and obstinate and push forward without the proper permits, the harder this is going to be. And the lawyer was telling him the same thing, the land attorney. So anyways, he ended up firing me. He didn't want to hear that. And we stayed involved in the project in a very small way, just to wrap up some remaining survey items over the course of the next year or two. And I watched this client cycle through 2 or 3 other project managers. So he would hire a project manager, they'd work for a few months, and then they'd get fired or they'd quit. And the basic problem was, this guy didn't want to hear he didn't want to face reality, and he didn't want to hear the truth from his consultants. He didn't want to hear the truth from the project managers he hired. So what do we learn? What do we learn from that story? One of the things that I do as a good professional consultant is I tell you the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear. So one of the things I talk about in my other videos that one of the things we do at Redefine Horizons is we help people try to manage risk in commercial real estate and land development. That's important because land development, commercial real estate is a risky endeavor, especially in a place like California. And so one of my jobs is to identify, assess, and help you manage the risk. And so the first part of that, identify and assess, that involves me telling you some bad news sometimes, right? You can't properly manage your risk as a land developer or as someone involved in commercial real estate if you can't manage that risk if someone's not being honest with you about the risk. The person you hire to help you manage risk isn't honest about the risks involved, then you're not going to be able to manage risk effectively. So that's a really important part of what I do, what my team does, is we assess risk. And sometimes I have to go to my client and say things like, this is a risky deal, or you can do this, but there's a lot of risk involved, or you can try this, but there's not a guarantee. You might lose some money. You might lose a lot of money. And then I have to let the client make the decision. So that's important. The client ultimately has to decide how much risk to take. They got to weigh the risk-reward trade-off, right? It's not my money, and it's not my risk. It's their risk. My job is to be honest with them. So here's the thing. If I lie to you as your consultant about your project or the risks involved in your project, it could cost you a lot of money. And I don't want to do that, and you don't want me to do that. So if you're getting a lot of free advice from a person that claims to be an expert in real estate or land development, you need to be careful. It's probably not good advice, right? I charge a reasonable price for my advice. Most other competent real estate professionals that I know do the same thing. So if somebody's telling you everything's going to be okay, or there's no risks involved, or this is easy money, be skeptical. That's probably not true. There isn't any easy money in California real estate, right? You can make money in California real estate. You can make a lot of money, but it's hard work, and it takes expertise, and it takes knowing the rules of the game and knowing how to play the game. So again, you get to make the decision as the client. My job is to tell you the truth. I don't want to lie to you. You don't want me to lie to you. You're worse off if I lie to you. So the problem I had with this client a couple years ago is he wanted somebody to lie to him. He wanted somebody to tell him that his project was going to get approved, no problem, that he wasn't going to have to spend any money. And that wasn't the truth, and he figured that out the hard way. And ultimately, the project ended up getting killed because he didn't want to pay the fees that it took to get his entitlements and his permits. And that's okay. That was his decision, but he spent a lot of money getting to that point. And I think if he'd have listened to the initial analysis that we gave him and some of the information we gave him early on, he could have saved himself some of that pain. So what do you want to do if you're going to be involved in a commercial real estate transaction or a land development project anywhere in the United States, but especially here in California? You want to hire a consultant that's going to tell you the truth. You want honesty from your consultant. You don't want them to sugarcoat stuff. You don't want them to blow a bunch of sunshine your direction. If it's gonna rain or snow, you want to know that. So hire a consultant that'll tell you the truth, and that's going to charge you a fair price for the advice. If you're not paying a fair price, you're probably not getting good advice. You need to hire me because I'm the expert, and I understand the rules and I understand the risks. Don't pay for that advice and then ask me to lie to you. It's not going to work out.